So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Risking It All podcast. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Ajmal Mushtaq. Welcome, Ajmal.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for agreeing to come on the podcast. Excited to have you here. So, multi-millionaire, lawyer, serial entrepreneur, owner of the UK's fastest growing pizza chain. Way to make us feel inadequate, Ajmal.
Not intended. Not
at all, mate. So, like with every guest, we like to ask them to take us all back to where it started for Ajmal. So, I've seen you mention on other podcasts, child of immigrants. When your mum and dad arrived in the UK, English was their second language, and despite that, between your siblings and you, we have doctors, scientists, lawyers. So I guess question one's an obvious one for any parents that are listening. How on earth did they manage? Take us back to where it all started for Ajmal and tell us a bit about your childhood.
I think where it all started was, I think being the son of immigrants, actually looking back now, was a major advantage because you're brought up with nothing. And growing up, it's hard to be hungry when you're well fed. And my parents came to this country in the 70s with nothing. They didn't know the language, they didn't know the culture, they didn't have any money. But despite that, they made a success of themselves in their own way. And that, I take my hats off to them and every immigrant that comes to this country and makes a go of it. And I think I was just brought up with my parents risking it all, appropriately named. Like my dad wouldn't hesitate to take a loan out on the house and risk it all in the business.
Right, okay.
And then there was no concept of let's set up a limited company and if things don't go right, we can just declare ourselves bankrupt. There was none of that. It was like you put your own money, your own house on the line, you risk it all. And what that does is that gives you an advantage. You have to move forward. You have to force the result. Failure is not an option. So I was brought up by witnessing and seeing this firsthand for myself. And I think that has shaped my approach to business as well.
Right, okay. Which town did they decide to settle in when they arrived in Scotland?
They arrived in Huddersfield. And then my dad came to Glasgow to visit one of his friends, and he ended up staying here. Stayed in the west end of Glasgow in Carnarvon Street. It's not like what it is now. It's like back in those days, it was a lot poorer and a lot more run down. And then went to Hamilton, moved to Hamilton, and that's where we've been ever since.
Right, okay. And how many brothers and sisters do you have?
One brother, two sisters.
Right, okay.
I'm the youngest.
You're the youngest, right, okay, cool. And what school did you go to?
I went to Hamilton Grammar School.
Right, okay.
And I didn't do very well at school.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
That I don't know why, but that surprises me.
Yeah.
You definitely don't strike me as somebody that would have clowned a bit in school. But tell me a bit about school. How did you find school? Did you enjoy it?
Right. I'm going to tell you something that happened a few years after I went to school. I scored 100% for my prelim higher geography, right? That was in college when I did my hires at college. The same Ajmal in school, I would have scored 50%. And the only difference was the level of motivation. So at school, I just didn't have the motivation.
Right,
you put pressure on a 16-year-old. What do you want to do for the rest of your life? What career path do you want to go down? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just a wee guy from Hamilton. I've never had any exposure. And I think we put too much pressure on the youngsters to make life choices when they don't have any exposure or any life experiences themselves. And that was unfair. So my level of motivation was like zero. I had no motivation to study, and because I didn't see where it was going. But fast forward a few years, I went to college to do my hires. And that's where I got like 100%. I scored 100% because I was hyper motivated. The teacher would come in and, you know, the usual chat, how was your weekend? I'm gonna do something. The teacher would come in. I'm just going to take this piece of paper.
Yeah, go for it.
Teacher would come in Monday morning. how's everyone's weekend, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, not interested in that, you teach. And I was ready like this, poised to learn at 9 a.m. sharp. Didn't miss a single day of college to do my hires. And then from there, I got the grades to get into law school at Glasgow Uni.
Right, okay. So it was off to law school then, and how was that? How was your experience there?
Law school was great. So just going back, zero motivation at school, left school with very little education. I didn't have any hires. Worked as a waiter for 4 years, got treated not very well. And then I thought, I'm much better than this. I just knew it inside me. I have got so much more to give, but I just couldn't see the avenue. And then I saw this program on television. It was profiling these bankers in London. This is going back 30, 40 years, 35 years or something, 30 years. And all of the bankers were young and they were all earning £50,000. And back then that was mega money. And I thought, I bet I am smarter than all of you. The only difference is you're there, you've done this, you've taken the steps to get there and I've not. And that was a spark that got my ass into gear. And I thought, right, you know what? I am going to, right, what do I need to do to get there? So I need to go to law school. That opens a door to the bigger companies. And then from there, you get a good job. And once you get a good job, you're made for life.
Right, okay. So that I guess was the thing that flipped you from being unmotivated in school to thinking, right, I need to get my arse in gear and focus on trying to achieve what I want to achieve here.
Exactly.
Right, okay. And it was then off to law school. How long is law school? Excuse my ignorance.
3 years.
3 years, right, okay.
3 years to get an LLB, but in second year law, I decided I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to be a management consultant, and the reason is because management consultant paid double of what law graduates were getting paid. When I started with Accenture, their salary was $38,500. The starting salary back then, the starting salary for solicitors was £14,000 back then. And I thought, I'm just going to invest a mega amount of money and time getting an education. I want to work for the companies that pay the most amount of money. So I just followed the money. And I think a lot of people, they put their blinkers on, they're going to law school, they're going to become a lawyer. You should always keep your options open. I've always looked a few steps ahead and seen, right, where is the money? And I just follow the route for that.
We've actually spoken about this quite a lot on this podcast. And there's a few guests and even some of our co-hosts that have suggested that the reason that some folk take that blinkered approach is parent pressure. So parent was a doctor or parent was a lawyer, and that is what you will be. You will follow that path. Yeah. Do you prescribe to that? Have you experienced any of that in your life, or were you always just taught by your own parents, follow your own path, we'll support you, whatever way you end up going? Or did you feel some of that parental pressure? Parental pressure, very prescribed. Be a doctor, be a lawyer, just a safe path. But I don't listen to any societal rules. A rebel. I am a rebel. And my wife says, the rules don't apply to any rules, or they don't apply to you. I make up my own rules as I go along. So I like to keep an open mind. Right, okay. And I think that opens the doors to many more opportunities. So when was this, when you started in management consultant? So this would have been 2002, so 22 years ago. God, right, okay. And that was down in London? Down in London, yeah. Yeah. And how was that, taking yourself away for, I guess as a younger guy it's maybe a bit easier, but how was that taking yourself away for your hometown where you had been brought up? You have to do it. If you want to play at the very top end of the Premier League, you've got to be at Manchester City. You cannot stay here and play for Hamilton Academicals and expect the same results. And it's the same in business. You've got to go where the money is. And at that time, the money was in London. And the one thing I would say to any student watching this, your first job out of university is the most important. So imagine you're a footballer, 18 years old, and you get an apprenticeship or a traineeship with Manchester City. If you go there and do well, you're made for life. But if you come down to
Hamilton Accies, no disrespect, Partick Thistle, Airdronians, you're going to be operating at a much lower league. So the first job, you want to make sure you're playing for the premiership companies like PwC, Accenture, Ernst & Young, the big Apples, Googles. If you get into those companies and the career progression that those companies offer, you're made for life.
Right, okay. And how long were you in management consultancy
10
in
years.
the end? 10 years. Right, okay. And did you enjoy it?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think that gave me the advantage in business because it gave me the required level of professionalism, diligence, quality control, training, focus on people. All of this are the building blocks of a successful business I learned in that professional environment. And then when I applied that to my own business, my business just exploded. It just grew phenomenally.
Right, okay. And we will go on to that first business and almost, that leap and risking it all in a minute. But can you remember before that, was there a particular moment that just sparked something inside you where you thought, I don't really know if my life is leading towards management consultancy for the rest of my career here. Maybe I could do something on my own.
Yeah.
Was there a singular moment or was that something that built up over time?
It built up over time and there was just this burning desire inside. I knew I was much better and had much more in me than just going along to a corporate job 9 to 5. Oh, it wasn't 9 to 5. 9 to 5 for year in, year out. And I knew I was good, but you have to test yourself out there in the real world with zero safety nets. If you are working in a corporate job, it's very easy to be good because if you fail, you've got 1,000 safety nets under you. Out there in the real world, if you run your own business and you fail, you are falling flat on your face to the ground with no safety net.
Yep.
So I thought, and I wasn't walking about telling people I'm good, I'm great, I think I'm great. I just knew it. I thought, I know about business. I'm good at business. I know I'm going to be great at this. I just had that feeling inside and it just grew and grew and grew. And then I decided I'm going to run my own business. And that decision from that point, from making the decision that I want to run my own business to actually leaving took 2 years. That was the hardest decision I've ever made. So I've got a very comfortable lifestyle. I've got a great job. My wife's got a great job. 6 weeks holiday a year. You get all the benefits and you're going to risk all of that to run your own business. Are you insane? That's everyone was saying that. My parents, my brothers, my brother, my sisters, my cousins, everyone. Are you sure you want to do this? Because at that point I had built up what most people would regard as a dream life, well-paid job, jet-set lifestyle, and I'm going to risk it all for running my own business. And I did.
Again, we've had a couple of guests that have spoken about this, and one in particular said that he actually had to sit his mum down and say, I know it's coming from a position of love and worry, but just stop because it's like holding me back and I really want to go for it. So I can definitely empathise with some of that feeling myself. I've took a similar path in terms of worked in a corporate job for 15 years and, got to a pretty senior level and had all of those conversations, and sometimes it drives a wee bit of self-doubt in your own head as well, where you think, am I doing the right thing here? I've got a mortgage, kids, your life's set up almost. I sometimes think it's easier in inverted commas to do it when you're younger and you're no tied down with wife, kids, mortgage, your life isn't set up properly. So if you fail, cool, I can just kind of start again or get a job. So you eventually took the leap, and business number one, I am acutely aware of. I lived in Hamilton for a period, and a part of my waistline is as a result of the business that you ran for a long time in Hamilton. But for those that are watching and listening that know nothing about it, tell us a bit about it.
So I took over from my parents. My dad and uncle had a restaurant, and then my dad ended up with it, and then I took it over from my dad. It was a tiny 30-seater restaurant in Hamilton. Took that over. I was in love with the food business anyway, and I grew that to being the biggest takeaway operation in Britain, Mushtaq's, and that's been featured on television, radio, press, like thousands of times. If you Google Ajmal Mushtaq or Mushtaq's, there's just so much great press about it. So it was amazing. I took it from something very small to being the biggest in the country within a space of 5 years. So that was a really incredible achievement, and it was so rewarding just to. And I built that kitchen, that big kitchen that you see on the TV or in the press. I actually built that and designed it myself, and I would be sitting there thinking, bloody hell, this is good. We were outputting one meal every 15 seconds. This was like a military operation. This was like a Formula One team, outputting curries. It was phenomenal.
And you touched earlier in the podcast about some of the experience that you took from management consultancy, and I would imagine a lot of that to be systems and process orientated.
Yeah.
Is that the type of thing that you almost lifted and shifted into like a restaurant-y type world or environment, and that's what helped elevate you to be able to do a takeaway every 15 seconds?
The principle of running every single business in the world is exactly the same. The only difference is the final output of product. So, for example, in the food business, it might be like a piece of bread, right? The output for this podcast studio is exactly the same. You need expertise, you need training, you need to pay your tax, you need to pay your VAT, you need marketing, you need systems, you need sales, you need the fundamental building blocks of business are exactly the same. The only difference is the guys in this podcast studio are going to give you a USB stick with files on it, and I'm going to give you a piece of bread. Underneath that, the fundamental building blocks of every single business are exactly the same. And the reason people feel is because they fail to understand that the principles of running every single business are exactly the same. So they need to get good at business, but they focus too much on the final output.
Right, okay. And that 5-year period where you took over it and it was a fairly small restaurant to growing it to the UK's largest takeaway operation, talk to us a bit about sacrifice. I've seen you speak in other podcasts about, what you personally had to sacrifice to make that happen.
Yeah.
Are you a fundamental believer that in order to create something incredible, there is inevitably going to be a period of sacrifice that everybody just needs to face into?
Yeah. I had one big advantage that helped me become a multimillionaire, and that was I was willing to risk it all, to do whatever it takes to become a success. So I was happy to work from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock every single day. And then at 4 o'clock, I would go home for 1 hour, have a break, arrive at work at 5 o'clock and work to midnight. Every single day I was working 2 days. And I did that for 7 days a week, every day of the year for 6 years straight. And when I tell people that, they're like, how could you do that? You've sacrificed so much. That has now led to me living a completely different lifestyle. Mm-hmm. There is nothing, there is no barriers in my life. I can do what I want, when I want, go where I want, holiday when I want, buy anything, material things. I can buy whatever I want. But most people are not willing to make the sacrifice. And if you look at any world champion, anyone who's really achieved, Usain Bolt, he didn't become the fastest man in the world by chilling out, hanging out with his mates, and sometimes doing a bit of training. Mm-hmm. So if you want to be insanely successful, you have got to put in the sacrifice.
Right, okay. And did you have kids in that period as well?
Yeah, my son was born in the year I started my business.
Oh, God,
hardly saw him.
And I'm guessing very supportive wife throughout that period, because again, having been through a similar transition in terms of you go for that safety net of you're in at 9, you're out at 5, it's then family time at night, and you've got all the time in the world to almost doing similar to you. I didn't quite do it for 6 years, thankfully, but I was about 16 months, and if I'm really honest, that kind of pushed me to the edge. Even after that period where I would do my 9 to 5, I'd have an hour with family, I'd then work from 6 o'clock to midnight, 1 a.m. I did that probably 6 days a week for 16, 17 months until the business could afford my business partner and I, but struggled at times during that. So family really supportive throughout that period, that pull you through some of the really tough times.
Something I've never spoken about ever, actually. One of the things that can make or break you as a man is having a good woman by your side. So I'm very blessed in the fact that I've got a wonderful, supportive wife. And no matter what I decide to go on, she trusts my judgment, and she knows, yeah, I'll make it work. And the great thing, the thing I love about I don't think I've ever told her, I've never told her this. The thing I love about my wife is she's not into the material goods. She couldn't care about Louis Vuitton or Chanel or whoever these designers are.
Right.
And I'm thinking that's really good for me, because we don't have to spend money on tat.
Aye.
So on stuff that we don't have to spend money on all these material goods that are just, I think they're just a waste of money, frankly. You know, like, I believe in buying good quality things that you want, not buying things just to show other people.
Right,
So
okay.
So get a good woman.
Aye, okay, great advice. And just delving into that kind of 5-year period again in maybe a wee bit more detail, was there a particular moment that you can remember where you thought, this is really, really working, it's really taking off, like I'm really starting to earn good money? Or was that just a case of it just continually compounding day after day, week after week, year after year?
Yeah. The first 18 months were very difficult, and I say to people, if you're starting a business today, do not expect anything for the first 18 months. Nothing happens. Facebook, nothing happened in the first year. We didn't know about it. TikTok, they advertised on Facebook for about 2 years straight with those really annoying adverts. Only like 2-3 years later did it take off. Most people fail in business because they give up too soon. It takes at least 18 months of hard graft, and then your business reaches a tipping point, and then people buy into it. The first 18 months, you are going to be bombarded with negativity, criticism. Everyone's got a bloody opinion about your business. And that's enough to derail you. So a word of warning to anyone starting a business: if you, Brian, were to start a business today, you are not an expert, right? Then what happens is your friends, your family, some critics, some local geezers, everyone's pointing their opinions at you. Everyone's giving you an opinion. Don't do this, don't do that. That's not going to work. This isn't going to work. And see if you're not so strong in your mind and your determination, that's enough to derail you. And I was pretty lucky that I'm pretty resilient, but there were times where even I thought, bloody hell, have I made the right decision here?
I would imagine in food in particular,
Yeah.
you literally get critics that come to eat and then judge.
Yeah.
That's garbage or that's great,
Yeah.
and then they publish it in media, and
Yeah.
you know, maybe social media wasn't quite as prevalent back when you
Yeah,
started, but I can imagine that to be a bit of a boiling pot of
Yeah.
pressure. And I know something that I think that I'd like to take on myself, but I'm interested to hear about the birthing point of the 29-minute delivery promise.
Right.
That, to be honest, is probably what first brought me to Mushtaq's, because
Right.
I'm just one of these guys that when I want to eat, I want to eat. I
Yeah.
hate waiting. I
Yeah.
hate waiting. Like, see, when you're phoning a takeaway and saying I phoned you an hour ago, what's happening? It inevitably gets there. It's stone cold. So, what was where did that arise for, and what do you think that did for your business in turn?
Right. So it's very important, if you start a business, you need to keep a flexible mind. You should be able to change the strategy of your business just like that. So the very first Saturday that I opened my restaurant business, my plan was to have a chain of restaurants. The very first Saturday I opened, I changed my business strategy, because the restaurant was very busy. I did the cash up at the end of the night, and we made £3,000. And I thought, okay, for a restaurant on a Saturday night, a small 30-seater restaurant, that's very good. And I thought, is that it? Have I just left my job? Have I just risked it all? Have I just invested all this money, my life savings, to make this much money? I thought, no. What I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on the takeaway side of business, because that's unlimited. So the very first Saturday, I changed the strategy to focus on takeaway. And I thought, right, takeaway, anytime you phone a takeaway, it takes about an hour. And I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring out a 29-minute delivery guarantee, and I'm going to make sure that we get the food to the customers, freshly cooked food to the customers within half an hour. And we ran that advertising campaign for 5 years straight, from 2020 to 2000 from 2010 to 2015. We ran that advertising campaign, 29-minute delivery guarantee, relentlessly.
I always remember in Hamilton, you always had that billboard, and it had it was like, I want to say it was like a Mini Cooper with a rocket on it. And it was 29 minutes.
Rocket fast delivery.
Very eye catching and pretty clear. That's a pretty American thing, I think. The whole, like, you see clips of that online now, where it's 29 minutes guaranteed delivery, and then they phone and go, you were 30 minutes, so can I have my money back? Did that ever happen? Interest?
We made that happen. Our service was so slick, right? So I had to give credibility to the guarantee. So what I would do is, some order, I would say to the guy, just wait 5 minutes in the kitchen. Just wait 5 minutes. Don't do anything with it. Just delay it so it actually goes over the 29 minutes. That would maybe be 33 minutes. And then we'd arrive saying, oh, really sorry, right here, we'll give you a discount code for the next order. We would intentionally sometimes do that. Just, oh yeah, we got the delivery, but yeah, we've got the discount for the next time. So the 29-minute delivery guarantee set us apart. And the great thing about making such a bold promise was it paid off for the business. So a word of warning for anyone thinking to do the same. And no matter what your business is, look for that one thing that can hit the sweet spot with the customers. Do that, but you've got to deliver against that. You can't just sort of put out a guarantee and
could have been disastrous, really.
Exactly. The way we did the 29-minute delivery guarantee, we actually did the 29-minute delivery guarantee for 6 months before we advertised.
Right, okay.
So we were very well rehearsed in that craft before we advertised.
Got you. And for anyone who's not, I've seen a video, I want to say on the BBC, or maybe I've seen it on social media, of your kitchen at the time. And for anyone that's not seen it, that's listening, I would highly encourage you to have a look. You can't really ascertain the scale of the operation, I think, until you see it. Like, we're not talking just a small kitchen that's firing out curries here. It was, you described it earlier as like an F1 operation. You can see it in that video clip in particular. It just looks huge by scale and slick.
Yeah, it's like an aircraft hangar of a kitchen. So when people...
Where is that? Is that at the back of Mushtaq's?
Yeah.
Is it? Right,
so
okay.
I've sold Mushtaq's now, so it's no longer my business, but I mean, fond memories of that place. And I remember just meeting people sometimes. People judge you based on what you do. So they would say, Ajmal, what do you do for a living? I say, I'm a chef in a takeaway. But really, I was the chef director of like a mega operation. But I quite like to just sometimes just play it down and just. But yeah, that phenomenal operation, phenomenal.
Great, and I'll go on to the exit in just 1 minute, but I want to touch on this. Isn't, I guess, just prevalent to Mushtaq's, because I follow your content. I think the reason I enjoy it so much is I'm a born marketeer and salesperson myself. You talk a lot about the importance of, you can have the best business in the world, the best product in the world, but if you don't tell anybody about it, what's the point? And you talk a lot about, the 10 channels of marketing that you followed. So speak to us a bit about your philosophy around marketing any business, not just what you did at Mushtaq's.
Any business in the world, there is no point doing a good job if no one knows about it. If you're doing a good job, get out there and tell the world. And where a lot of businesses fail is they fail to tell the world. And at Mushtaq's, we had 30 different marketing channels. If my current businesses, I've got about 10, 12. So that's what I say to people: get out there and tell the world, and use as many different channels as possible. So newspapers, if they're still a thing in your area, social media, billboards, branded cars, you name it. Try 10, 15 different things, and the things that are working, focus on those.
And how did you see, when you have like 30 marketing channels, for example, ultimately there will come a decision point where you need to sit down and go, right, I'm piling X amount in. I kind of need to figure out what my channel of choice is here so that I can maybe home it down into a few. How do you do that when you've got like 30 different channels in the go? Is it just different number for each channel so that you can track the output and then go, right, we put $2,000 into that, we got a 5x return, we put $2,000 into that, we only get a 3x return, so let's focus on that one?
It's quite difficult to get the ROI, the return on investment, on every single marketing activity that you do. What we focused on was spending 5 to 8% of total sales on marketing religiously. Did that from day one, and I never stopped until I sold the business.
Right, okay.
So that was a formula. So 5 to 8%, you get a decent return on income without impacting the bottom line. So if you spend much more than that revenue is then going to start affecting other parts of the business. You'll be short in other parts of the business. So 5 to 8%, I found was very effective. That would generate a decent return on investment that justified me spending that much money week in, week out.
Okay.
So you've got a pot of money, and sometimes you might put more to social media. Sometimes you might put some to like radio advertising. Sometimes you might put more to social media advertising. And the key thing is, don't just focus on social media. That was our strategy. Focus on physical as well. One of the most effective marketing strategies still to this day is a physical leaflet through the door. So have you noticed how Domino's, you get a leaflet through the door every 4 weeks?
You do.
Yeah. The reason that is because it works.
It was always the vouchers.
Yeah.
That's been the tack for a while with them. It's
yeah.
the, buy 2 pizzas, get 1 free.
Yeah.
It's clever, I guess.
So you need to have a mix.
Yeah. So it's almost less about worrying around which channel is most effective, but just treat your market and spend like, because we talk to business owners every day that aren't spending anything on marketing. They'll tell us, we got all our business through word of mouth. We're happy days. We don't need to spend money on marketing. Inevitably that dries up at some point. So it's more around just treating your market and spend like it's rent, electricity. It keeps the business alive, and it's no something that you should be doing just as and when you feel like it.
Exactly.
All right, cool. So we'll keep moving through your journey. You've exited Mushtaq. Was that recent?
Yeah, that was last year.
And what was the decision point around you deciding to exit from that business?
I grew that business, and it was phenomenal, but geographically it was very limited. It was a very big single unit operation that was difficult to replicate. So I decided to sell it, focus on Boss. I created a new brand called Boss Pizza. And the thing with Boss Pizza is it's much easier because the units are much smaller. We can replicate that across the country very easily. Okay,
well, that segues us beautifully into Boss Pizza, your most recent venture in food. So I think my first question is why pizza?
Nobody is offended by a slice of pizza.
Good point.
If you take 10 guys out for a meal and you say, we're going for a curry, that's too strong, my stomach can't handle it. Or if you go for Chinese, there'll always be one guy that doesn't. Whereas pizza, who's looked at a slice of pizza and said, no, I don't fancy a slice of pizza. So it's a big market. It's a multi-billion-pound market in the UK. It's a growing market. The current operators, there's 2 of them that are struggling, Papa John's and Pizza Hut. They're having store closures up and down the country. So I think there's space for a new challenger brand to Domino's. And that's where Boss Pizza is coming in.
Where was store number 1?
Hamilton. It was a dark kitchen.
Hamilton.
Yeah.
What is a dark kitchen for the listeners that
a dark kitchen is a takeaway operation that doesn't have a shop front. So Boss Pizza started in the one corner of the kitchen of the Mushtaq's operation.
Right, okay.
And then we opened up the store in Larkhall. Now we've got stores. We could just open up a store in London. Now I've got stores planned. There's about 20 stores planned. So by the end of this year, you'll see stores popping up, hopefully, across the country.
Right, okay. And profit margin on pizza. I seen you doing an interesting video. I think it went pretty viral actually, where you were walking about the streets. I don't know if that was in Hamilton, but you had a pizza and you were asking the public, if you buy this pizza for X amount, how much do you think ends up in my pocket after material, tax, etc., etc. Is there a decent margin in pizza? You don't need to go into the twos and throws.
No, I'm going to go into the twos. I'm going to go into the detail. The profit margin. And people need to know this, the profit margin in any business in the country, if you're earning between 5 and 10% net profit margin, that is very, very good. And a lot of people think that profit margin in business is so much more. It's not. So we make about, I think it's about, it ranges between like 10 and 20% profit margin, net profit margin. So if you sell a £10 pizza, you're coming away with £1.
Right, okay.
Worst case scenario. Best case scenario, you might earn like 180 or something. And it's, Brian, it's the same in every business. And I think a lot of people make the mistake. They go into a business thinking, we'll just take the pizza business, for example, or you sell a £10 pizza. How much does the dough cost? Yeah, £2 for all the ingredients. That's £8 profit. It's not. You've got wages, banking fees,
marketing,
merchant fees, marketing, rent, rates, electricity, gas, bins, phones, internet, all of the business expenses that are the same for every business. Once you take them off, you're left with about 10 or 20% maximum.
Right, okay. And is talk to us a bit about the model of Boss Pizza and how you're looking to scale that across the UK.
So Boss Pizza is a franchise model. What we're doing is we're at the moment selling off the major regions and the franchisees within those regions, and we'll be just expanding stores. So it'll be small, like similar to Domino's size or Papa John's size stores. And I'm not actually physically involved in the running of the stores. I'm just responsible for growing the brand nationally. And that's a big challenge for me, and I'm looking forward to it. Very excited.
And for those maybe long established pizza chains, some of whom are in trouble, I know that there's a fairly iconic one in Hamilton that's just closed down actually.
Yeah.
My wife and I were in McDonald's drive-through with the wee one maybe last week or the week before, and she says, "Oh, is that closed down?"
Yeah.
That's been there for as long as I can remember. Is that making it easier for the likes of you with a challenger brand when you see a store going out of business and just going, I'll just grab that store, it's already set up as a pizza shop? So.
Yeah. So, I mean, even last night I was on the phone to some guys from ex-Papa John's guys, and they were saying, we've closed down 8 of our stores. Yeah, would you like to buy them? And you're picking them up for pennies. You're picking them up very cheap. So we could just go and rebrand them, use a lot of the same equipment, the refrigeration, the air conditioning, the ventilation, all of that stuff's already in place. Mm-hmm. So for us to transform that into a Boss Pizza, maybe it's half the normal cost. So it's fantastic. The reason, by the way, I must say, a lot of this, 2 of the main established brands, the reason they're failing is not because they're not making sales, is because their head offices are charging them too much royalty.
Right, okay.
That's the point of failure for those businesses. And one of them is charging up to 19% royalty fee.
Right. Okay.
So it's X amount royalty, X amount, Y amount marketing. There's an HR fee, there's another fee, there's an admin fee, this fee, that fee. Before you know, it's 19%. You add in 20% VAT, 39%. You're never making any money.
Aye.
So that's the reason a lot of these...
and are you learning for that model, I guess, and ensuring that your franchise model's set up differently?
The way we're winning is we're putting the profit into the pocket of the franchisees. I'm not going to grow Boss Pizza. The franchisees are going to grow Boss Pizza. They're going to come back to me in 6 months and say, Ajmal, this is going really well. Can we get another store? My friend wants a store and my cousin wants a store. That's the way we're going to grow it. So we've got fixed royalty, very low per month. And where I'm going to win in Boss Pizza is if I've got, say, for example, in a few years, I've got 100, 200 branches across the country. That's when I get paid, when I've got the value of those 200 branches, I could sell the brand at that point. That's when I'm going to get paid.
You're almost back into that phase that you spoke about earlier, about the first 18 months to kind of 2 years. It's like, that's not when you're going to be earning. Yeah. It's playing the long game and the strategic game, I guess. And
so I'll tell you now, in the next 5 years, I'm not going to be earning much money. But year 5, year 6, when I cash out, that's when I'm going to make the big money.
Yep.
So along the journey, all of that profit that should be in my pockets is going to be in the pocket of the franchisees.
And how does it feel to be back in startup mode? So after you've grew your first business exponentially, you've got a great exit, you're back into that, right, we're at the beginning again, trying to grow something meaningful. How does it feel to be back in startup land?
Easy. I'm 49 and a half years old. I've made all of the mistakes that I could ever make. And now doing the same thing for the second time, you're only focusing on the things that work, and all of the pain points you've had, all of the mistakes, all of the times you've been screwed over, all of the negativity, all of the pain, that's all gone. Now you just focus on the positives, you focus on the growth, and the growth is just much faster now. It's just much more accelerated.
And how involved are you in the day-to-day running? Do you
Very.
Yeah.
Very. And I'm all over that business. I'm there 5 days a week. So not quite the 7 days a week. I'm there 5 days a week.
Yeah.
All over it.
And a question I've got for you that we've had for a couple of guests actually that have been fortunate enough to exit, one or a couple of businesses that they've had, they seem to always roll on to the next. Why is that for you in particular? I'm not expecting you to speak for other people, but why would you not go, do you know what? I've grew that business, I've did really well, I've exited, I'm off to the beach, and I'm just going to chill for 20 years, or maybe even 10 years, and then if I get bored, I'll maybe start something else. Why have you decided to roll on again into something else?
You can't sit still. I have got it in me that I always have to keep myself busy. I just can't sit still. I'd love a holiday. 1, 2, 3 weeks, that's it. I cannot be sitting doing nothing. I would just become brain dead. So I think that's why you see a lot of people that they're serial entrepreneurs, because they do one thing, they sell, they move on to the next thing. I think it's just inherent. And the reason I'm loving Boss Pizzas now, it's actually quite an easy business for me to do.
Right.
Just as I said before, I've made all the mistakes, I've had all my learnings, and it's now just relatively straightforward to do.
Right, okay. And do you suffer from that trait that most entrepreneurs suffer from, which is that even when you're with your family, for example, you're there physically, but your head is often in other places?
I was like that for the first 10 years, but now I have learnt to just detach from the business. I am very, very good at switching off. See, when I'm with my family, my phone is off, and I'm there 100%.
Do you think that there's an element of that comes with success?
Oh yeah. In the first few years, I would be sitting talking to my family, but my mind is like 100 miles away.
I'm definitely in that zone.
Yeah,
I feel guilty a lot of the times because it's just about trying to find that balance, isn't it? And sometimes I know that even when I'm there physically, my head's anywhere but in that living room. Do you know, it's about thinking, oh God, finance, I need to send that invoice, or did they do that? Or your head's just in ideas, it's like...
That's part of the course of being an entrepreneur. And I think once you reach a certain level of success, then you let yourself to chill out a little bit. Like whatever you're doing, you want to make it a success. So naturally, that's just going to be in your mind and your thoughts all the time. And I was like that as well. But then I think a few years ago, about 5-6 years ago, I learned to just switch off, because it's not fair in the family if you're always somewhere else. Funny story, I used to tell people, I did this for like 3 years straight, just before COVID. I would go on holiday and leave my phone at home. And that was... Brian, that was the best thing ever. Because I'm 100% with my family, and they loved it, I loved it. So I would be telling everyone, leave your phone at home, go on holiday, leave your phone at home. Just after COVID, went to Turkey, I left my phone at home again, because that's who I am. Got to the reception, tried to pay the bill, and it needed that 2-factor authentication. That was on the mobile. So then I'm on the phone to my bank in the UK for 45 minutes on hold, and I'm thinking, and the receptionist is looking, I've got money. I've got money, seriously. So that was quite funny. So now I won't be telling people that again. So I took the phone, but it's in the safe. I just switch it off and leave it in the safe.
Right, okay, that's a good tip. That terrifies me, to be honest, the thought of going on holiday and leaving my phone, or even having it switched off. But I can already see, I can look forward to the day that that can happen. I don't know whether just in each entrepreneur's head as well, you think the walls are going to cave in when you're not there, but the reality is they're not. If you've got the right systems and processes in place, and if you're fortunate enough to have a great team in place,
exactly.
And if you can't do that, then that's, I guess, where you should be focusing your attention on. I need to get that sorted, because I need to have a life here. I'm interested to ask you, it's apparent from your story today that you've kind of came for nothing, and you're now in a position where, to quote you, materially you can buy whatever you want to buy. Do you think that that's changed you at all? Just in terms of like your approach to life? do you think that, you know, being financially secure means that you're now a better person and can contribute more to society? Talk to us a bit about how you feel like your life's changed, if at all, now that you've achieved all of this success.
Fundamentally, I think I'm still the same person, if not a better person. I give much more to charity. I've mentioned that in a few podcasts I've done before. Whenever I go abroad, I give up to thousands of pounds away just to people who I feel like giving it away to. I've always been very generous. I went for a kebab on Bethnal Green Road in London, and it was like £7. And I gave the girl, the lady, it was like a Wednesday night. I could just tell she's a mum. She's out grafting, and just gave her a £50 tip. That's all I had on me. £50 tip on a £7 kebab. So I do like hundreds of little gestures like that. But fundamentally, I'm the same. In fact, I'm glad you mentioned this. I am, and this might sound like a brag, right? I am a world expert in the art of not giving a fuck. Right? I am probably one of the leading guys in the world in that art. I've got this watch. I've got this watch. It was like a watch I bought for £10 from Argos, right? It's a plastic watch that I used to wear to Sunday football. And then just over the years, it just became like the most comfortable watch I've got. So I would wear that watch every. I'm at weddings with a wee plastic watch. I'm on podcasts with a little plastic watch. I'm doing these sort of big interviews in TV with my little £10 watch. I don't care. And sometimes clothes is maybe supermarket. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're maybe, you know, like I like to have nice suits and nice shirts, nice cotton shirts and nice suits. But see, beyond that, all this casual gear, I couldn't care less.
Aye.
I'm not Gucci-fied and Louis Vuitton, and I think that's just not me.
Aye, it's nonsense. I'm with you on that front.
Yeah.
You know, mark my words, and I'm sure my family will hold me to account on this, but it's equally no me. You know, I'm quite happy in an Adidas top, a Nike top, as long as it's comfortable, to be honest. All right, great. And do you ever do you find that since you've found a bit of success that you suffer from the old people wanting to pitch you on ideas, whether it's family, friends, people that you've known, or just random folk trying to get a hold of you to get some cash out of you to look at this great idea I've got? Do you want to be involved?
I get a lot of people approaching me for maybe business advice or business tips, and I find that really easy because I could talk about business 24/7. I love talking about business. I live and breathe it. So yeah, you get a lot of that. The other thing I would say, when you are successful, people then start to come after you. When I was in the first 6-7 years of my life, first 6-7 years of my business, I was relatively unknown. But then as I got more and more well known, then people come out the woodwork, they start taking you to court for X, Y, Z. And they think that you've got money, they can exploit a bit out of you. And yeah, that's one of the downsides. And yeah, there was one interesting case. I used to do a cookery show on TV, right? So this company sent me their frying pans, and these a set of frying pans cost me £3,000, right? So this company says, listen, could you use these pans on your TV show? I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. So I used the pans in the TV show. And then like 3 weeks later, after it aired on TV and all that, 3 weeks later, they sent me an invoice for £3,000.
Chancers.
I thought, hello? So then I just ignored them. I thought, I'm not doing that. And then they ended up taking me to court because they wanted their pans back. And I was going to dig in my heels and think, no way, because it's a point of principles. And then one of my older colleagues says, Ajmal, you know what, just give them pans back and just get it off your plate. So it is little things like that people will try when they know that you've got a bit of money.
Listen, wait till you get the bill through for appearing on this podcast. Okay, mate. Well, you know, you've started to touch on some of it, but just to start wrapping things up, we like to give you an opportunity to talk to us about what does the next kind of 3 to 5 years hold for you and your business. You've spoke a bit about Boss Pizza and your ambitions there. Just tell us a bit about, you know, what you're planning over the next kind of maybe even 1 to 3 years and then beyond.
I think my son is 13 years old and my daughter is 8. The next few years, I really want to make sure that I'm doing well in business, but also doing well as a father and husband. And I think in the early years of my business, I neglected I failed to give as much time as I should have done to my family, but now it's all about focusing on wife, children, my parents, and just spending a lot more time with the family. I think that's a key thing, and running the business successfully. But the great thing, Brian, I've said about the business is things are much more efficient and results are much easier to achieve because I know exactly how to get them. I've already done it like 1, 2, 3 times in the past. So I'm just much more efficient with my time. I'm now working about 25 hours a week.
Right, okay.
6 hours a day, 4 days a week.
Well, I think that's an important message. I think it's pretty courageous of you actually to sit there and say, I did just sacrifice time with my kids and with my family to grow my business. But I guess the trade-off is that you're now in a position where before you're 50, you're doing really well. You can now focus time on family and you're working 25 hours a week and growing a pretty successful business. So kudos to you, mate.
And see, when I say I'm working 25 hours a week, or I actually work probably between 20 and 24, but seeing that 20 hours, I can actually do like a full week's work or maybe 2 weeks worth of work because I've got my systems, processes, everything down to a T now. So if I was to write a press release, right, it would take me about 3 minutes.
Right.
Take a picture, edit that. You're talking about 6 minutes. I could write a press release and have it out the door. So it's like I'm much more efficient with my time. So I don't feel the need to sit there and work long hours. I'm just really quite slick at what I do now because I've done it for long enough.
Do you prefer to work for the house or are you out and about? What's your preference?
Office. Hate working from the house. You can't work from the house. Yeah. I like to be in the office environment.
I've kind of went full circle, to be honest. I did quite a lot of time, even before COVID, in my corporate job, working for the home and did become quite accustomed to it. But I genuinely do think it drove me to be quite lazy. Now that I'm back into an office environment, I think, what was I doing all of the years sitting in the house myself? Where do you sit on that? I could probably guess, but there's a whole, argument ensuing in the UK just now around folks should be able to do what they want. If they want to work from home, let them work from home. You've got some other bigger businesses saying, get them back into the office. We need that productivity back. Where do you sit?
I worked for a major bank last year. After I sold my business, I worked for a major bank in London. Very, very good money. It was a remote job. The money was insane. Remote job, and it was the worst experience of my life.
Right.
The reason being, when I went into the office, something as simple as filling out a timesheet, right, there's no one here, right, okay, so I need to set up a Teams meeting with one of my colleagues. I can't get hold of him, right, I'll phone someone else. Right, okay, missed my timesheet, got into trouble with it, the HR person, or not trouble, but got pulled up by the HR for not filling out my timesheet. Tried to schedule another meeting with another one of the colleagues. I'm just new. There's no one in here. The office is totally empty. I've just arrived. I don't know where people are or what the setup is. So to fill out my timesheet, which would have taken
20 seconds.
20 seconds. Right. Mate, how do you fill out this timesheet? Yeah, click there, and just put your hours in there. It took like almost 3 days, and that was just filling out a timesheet. So everything about that project that I did was just, it was just a struggle. And I like to be around in a room where you've got colleagues, you're bouncing ideas off each other, and you're working together on the common vision to deliver a project. But working from home, you're detached from that. So I am a big fan of working from the office.
Do you know, it's interesting you say that, because the nature of our business, we run a digital marketing agency, everything's online, can run it from anywhere in the world. So in theory, didn't need an office. My business partner and I hummed and hawed for ages. Will we get one? Will we not get one? We don't really need one. Is it an overhead that we're then carrying that we don't need to be carrying? So we said initially, let's just get a small office. We'll see how it goes. It's the best thing we've ever done, because things that used to take us 3 days between us when we were doing it from the house, we can probably now chew through in 40 minutes.
Exactly.
Every day gets round on a wee table, you get the whiteboard, you generate some ideas, right? Actions, you clear on that, right? Let's go away and get it sorted.
Done.
And just like that aside, see, just fun, just having fun with other people.
Yeah.
I really missed that. I definitely did when I had that prolonged period of working for home. It was like you would get pulled onto these team sessions to have fun, right? But it felt so forced.
Yeah.
It just felt so forced.
Yeah.
It wasn't organic. It wasn't fun.
Yeah.
So I've probably came full circle where I was all for it, and if people want to work from home, let them work from home as long as they're still productive. But I think now that I'm back to being in the office, I very much, I think, switched my tune, as it were, to, I just feel like as a society we'd be more productive if we were all in a room together again.
Yeah. I in my previous business once, I just made an off-the-cuff mark to one of my employees. She was just passing by, and I just stopped her. I said, Tracy, you worked here for 2 years. I don't think I've ever told you that you always do a great job. You just turn up, you don't complain, you just put in a solid shift week in, week out, you don't make any noise, and you know what, I really appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And she was buzzing, for weeks after that, the fact, and I'm thinking, if that was working from home, imagine getting a phone call. That'd just be a bit forced and a bit fake, whereas in the office, you've got those the instantaneous, off the cuff, thing, the collaboration, the meetings, the banter. You've got all of that. You just don't have that working from home.
Aye, spot on. One other thing I wanted to touch on, if that's okay.
Sure.
Again, I've seen you speak in other podcasts about this, is that, business has peaks and troughs, and I've seen you in other podcasts talk about, you squirreled away, worked hard, maybe bought a commercial building, and then worked away, bought another commercial building. Before you know it, you own half of Hamilton. What should business owners be doing or thinking about in that sense? Like when business is high and you're doing well, storing some away in an asset somewhere to really, safeguard your future, so that if business does have a wee downturn, or actually you decide to punt it all at some point, you've got, a nice wee nest egg there. So talk to us a bit about what you've done, and maybe offer up some advice to any other budding entrepreneurs that are going through those peaks and troughs.
I'm going to, in the next podcast, I'm going to take along the book that made me a multimillionaire, right? I was sitting in the bank with my bank manager. I was age 44 and I didn't even realise I was a multimillionaire. Right. What I was doing in the office every day, I was writing the press release, signing off on the billboard. I was doing training. I was preparing the health and safety. I was doing the temperature checks. I was doing and then when that page finishes, flip the page, write another 30 action. It was work, actions, output, productivity, actions, output, productivity, actions, output, productivity, actions, output, productivity for 6 years straight. And I didn't even look at the bank balance or how we're doing, and that the sum of all of that was, I was sitting in the bank manager's office and he said, can I get a list of your assets and liabilities? And listed that. Oh, I've got that. Okay. Bloody hell, right, I've got that. Oh yeah, we've got a flat in London paid for. Yeah, got that. Oh yeah, we own that. I mean, my wife's sitting there. It's almost like comical.
I'm doing no bad here.
We own that as well. Yeah. Oh, we own the land there. Yeah, and made the list of land. I'm like, bloody hell. And at that point, it actually dawned on me that I'm a multimillionaire. I was age 44 at the point. But the point I'm making, on that journey, no one sits there and counts how much money they're worth. If you ask a student, how much are you worth? They might be worth, like, say for example, £1,500, but they've not sat there and calculated, right, I've got 10 pairs of shoes, I've got £300 in my account, I've got £1,200. No one calculates that then. No one calculates that halfway through their journey. And even, when they're established, no one sits and calculates how much they're worth. Do you know how much, if I was to ask you, do you know how much you're worth? Yes or no?
No idea.
So no one does it. So the way I realised I was a multimillionaire is, it took my bank manager to force a question upon me that forced me to sort of add up my assets and liabilities. And it was only then I realised I was a multimillionaire. That didn't answer your question.
No,
what was the question again? Sorry.
It was more around, is there a particular strategy that, I wouldn't say that you would advise, but that you've followed that almost safeguards you against those potential peaks and troughs of business? So when business is going well and you've got a bit of cash there,
right,
you could argue the point that there's a million things you can do right now, from property to crypto to NFTs, all these crazy things.
Get it. Business is doing well. Don't spend money on stupid stuff. You don't need to buy the Rolexes and the fancy watches and the fancy cars. Save up the money. I put it away into property. The business made money. Put it away into more property. The business made money. Put it away into more property. I didn't buy any fancy watches or cars or anything like that for the first few years. I used to drive, the Mushtaq's delivery cars, the little minis. I used to drive that. And then my wife said to me like 4 years later, come on, you need to buy yourself a decent car. I was quite happy scooting around in a wee mini. Then I bought an S-Class. But that was only after my business is established and I had bought some property. So my strategy was let the business make money, invest into property. Business make money, invest into property.
Are you a buy and hold guy?
Buy and hold and never sell. That's
Right,
where you make in property. You make money in the long run.
Right.
And the years will pass by. I've bought property yesterday, and now all of a sudden, 10 years later, it's paid off, and now for the next 10 years, it's just going to be a cash cow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you need to do with property. That's what we do with property: buy and hold.
Do you prefer domestic properties or commercial properties?
Commercial property all day long.
Right.
Commercial property is so much easier. See, in a residential property, you as a landlord, you have to pay for everything, or you have to get everything done. Pay for the bloody light bulbs to be changed, or the door lock's not working. That's your responsibility. In a commercial property, under the terms of the lease agreement, the tenant is responsible for everything. Mm-hmm. I've had properties where I've taken the key and from my solicitor, bought the property, given it to the agent, and he's rented out the property, and I've not had to spend a penny nor a minute on the property.
Aye, that makes sense actually, because we currently lease our office, and we were just handed the keys, and I don't think I've heard or spoke to the landlord once since.
Yeah.
We've decorated it, we've put new blinds, we've put stuff in the walls, but that's all been us. So that makes sense actually.
And imagine you moved into a house and the carpets were a bit grubby and you need new blinds.
On the phone to the landlord.
You'd be on the phone to the landlord 20 times.
Right, okay.
So commercial is so much easier, but there's a big but. You've got to be careful. If your property, commercial property, is sitting empty for any amount of time, you could be liable for business rates, and that could be a killer.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
A great tip then. Okay, well listen, I get the 5-minute warning for Cam behind the curtain, I think about 10-15 minutes ago. I could genuinely sit and talk to you all day. I've learned so much just in this 1 hour sitting talking to you, so thanks so much for coming on.
Welcome.
It's been great to speak to you, and good luck with Boss Pizza.
Thank you.
My waistline is pretty thankful that you're no longer the owner of Mushtaq's. But who bought it off you? Do you know them?
It was a group of restaurant companies. They own restaurants in Edinburgh, so it was them. Okay. And I think they're going to change the... I don't know. They're going to make some changes, maybe bring out a new burger concept or something. I'm not sure.
Right, okay. Okay, well, all the best with everything.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Brian.
you. Cheers to all the listeners and viewers for tuning in. Tune in again next week, and remember, give us all a follow across all our socials on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn and TikTok.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Thanks so much.